Violence on the rise in Cameroon. Less than 72 hours after 6 persons from the same family were killed in Nangai Boko, that is in the Central region. Today, in the city of Douala, it is a 29-year-old seamstress who is stabbed to death by an alleged security guard in Bonaberi. Details of the story in the course of this newscast. And it was a tense atmosphere today in Boya, chief town of the southwest region. At least one person has been killed and many others injured by suspected separatist fighters. The fighters stormed the Mile 16 neighborhood, leaving the population panic-stricken. You get details of the stories in the course of this newscast. Stay with us for details. Good evening, dear televiewers of Equinoxe Television. Thank you so much for joining me on today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. We begin right here in the city of Douala, where a 29-year-old seamstress has been killed by a security guard in Bonaberi, Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. After being stabbed by the attacker, she died in a nearby hospital where she was being treated. Babla Jonathan reports.
This is the killer knife that brought out Chantal's intestines, squeezing life out of her. The alleged killer stormed this tailoring workshop at Place Roi Bell in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision at about midday Sunday. I was called and informed that my daughter has been assassinated, her intestines exposed, and that she was stabbed 3 times. The suspect tried to escape, leaving behind Chantal in her own pool of blood. We went after him and caught him at the junction and brought him to the gendarmerie command. The 29-year-old young woman was taken to the Bonasama district hospital, but it was too late and she did not survive the injuries inflicted on her by the security guard. The latter is said to be Chantal's love partner, but gendarmerie sources told us that he was just an admirer who had not declared his intentions towards the victim. According to Yumbi, a friend of Chantal, she had a dispute with the security guard a week ago. What provoked the tragic incident remains unclear. Investigations to establish the cause of the violent attack are on course. Meantime, the sealed tailoring workshop has been reopened by gendarme officers.
And now we talk about the crisis ongoing in the 2 English-speaking regions of Cameroon, rising insecurity at its peak in these parts of Cameroon. The most recent is the attack on civilians this morning in Mile 16, Boya. At least one person was killed, several others injured, and several cars equally set ablaze. Our reporter, Asia Lucy, has more.
Since the start of the Anglophone crisis in 2016, education in the conflict-affected regions has been at risk. About 6,000 people killed and more than 700,000 displaced. In October 2020, suspected separatists stormed a school in the town of Kumba, slaughtering children and injuring about 13 others. In 2021, separatists killed students and a French language teacher in Ikondo Titi. Violence in Cameroon's Anglophone regions is taking an increasingly heavy toll on civilians. The most recent case happened this Monday, 10th of April 2023, where several people were injured and 3 vehicles set ablaze at Mile 16 Boya by suspected separatist fighters. According to sources, the attack was as a result of the non-respect of the ghost town instituted every Monday in the northwest and southwest regions. The inhabitants of Boya say they woke up this morning around 5 a.m. hearing heavy sounds of gunshots. Sources add the attack lasted for 30 minutes and left one person fatally injured. The person died shortly after being rushed to the hospital for medical attention. The attack comes less than 48 hours after gunmen robbed and killed a mobile operator at Mayor Street in the Moliko neighborhood. Despite the measures put in place by the government to put an end to the Anglophone crisis, attacks against civilians have increased in the past years.
And still on insecurity in the conflict-hit southwest region, despite the realization of the 2022 earmarked project in Mamfe, Mayu division of the southwest region at a rate of 56.66%, the mayor, Robertson Tabenchong Ashu, says he's not satisfied with the slow pace at which work is moving. According to him, continuous attacks by armed separatist fighters on contractors is to be blamed. He was speaking during a council budgetary session when the municipal authorities say their performance will improve if peace is restored in the conflict-hit region. Details with Innocent Aze.
Mamfe remains one of the municipalities in Anglophone Cameroon hardest hit by the persistent socio-political crisis hindering developmental projects.
The Anglophone crisis is really disturbing the Mamfe municipality project, because projects like in the villages, we cannot go there to freely execute without the forces of law and order, because our brothers and sisters in the bushs will not allow the contractors to carry out the project. Some of them will say it is government project and they don't want this government project, whereas those projects are meant there for the developmental purposes of their municipality, of their villages.
As a consequence, elites of remote villages in Mamfe feel neglected and denied basic social amenities, things they do not stop demanding. Even the municipal authority is aware part of its population are suffering.
We are still soliciting that the other quarters who have not have solar lights, they stretch hands to those quarters. Same thing with boreholes. Not every quarter have had boreholes, so we are still pleading with the Lord Mayor.
They need lock-up stores, they need electricity, they need water, they need. But what we could do, we are going to give to the population. They need roads, they need boreholes. I mean, they need projects. All these projects that the population needs. Without peace and stability in our municipality, we cannot carry them. We cannot execute them.
Despite the inability of the Mamfe Council to reach out to all the communities in the municipality due to security threats, the mayor underlines they were able to realize 2022 earmarked projects at a satisfactory rate of 56.66%.
This is quite the turbulent times. We were able to make up to 500 million francs increase in from 2021 to 2022, though the percentage is not really encouraging, but I believe I am going to work harder in 2023. Most of the projects in Mamfe town itself were realized because there's peace and serenity in Mamfe.
The mayor, during the council's budgetary session, pledged to ensure efforts are doubled so that in 2023, project realization rates will increase, with troubled localities targeted through the sensitization approach and other techniques to soften the hearts of development haters to give development of their villages a chance.
And away from insecurity, we now talk religion. The bishops of the Kumba Diocese and that of Ezeka have called on those in positions of responsibilities to use their power to serve rather than to oppress those under them. Bishop Agapitus Fon and Bishop Achille Eyambi made the declarations while celebrating Easter Mass in Kumba and Ezeka respectively. Smajikan Gabriel tells us more.
At the Sacred Heart Cathedral in Fiangu, Kumba, as Christians celebrated the resurrection of Jesus Christ. For several years since the crisis started, it was the first time much attention was given to the Holy Week by Roman Catholic faithfuls in the Kumba Diocese. The Bishop of the Kumba Diocese, Agapitus Fon, says the resurrection was to allow people to know that Jesus Christ is the only authority.
The resurrection that we celebrate is to let us know that there is no authority that is above Jesus Christ. Even authority here in the world, it can be political, it can be traditional, it can be authority in the church, it is all given by God. And as Peter told us in the first reading of today, in the Acts of the Apostles, that Christ himself is going to judge. He will judge the living and the dead. So he is the supreme, the paramount, the King of Kings, the President of Presidents. So whoever has authority should know that Christ is going to judge him, and he will judge him according to his love.
The bishop sends this message to those in authority.
Anybody in authority is there to serve. That's why we call the Holy Father the servant of the servants of God. So anybody in authority is to serve, is to ask himself, how much am I bringing joy to the people? How much am I loving the people? How much am I bringing peace and justice to the people?
Bishop Agabitus Fon also talked about the crisis in the two regions, saying that force has never been the solution to solve any problem.
Christ has shown us violence is not the solution to any problems we have. We are a people of hope. So after every Good Friday, there is a resurrection. So I want to tell the people in the Diocese of Kumba that we should be a people of hope, a joyful people, looking forward to the day of the Lord. The Lord's day is the best.
At Ezeka, during the Easter feast, Bishop Achille Eyabi urged the people of Young Anekele division to be strong against the negative things plaguing them and to join their hands in the development of their division and country.
And still in religion, in his Easter message to the world, Pope Francis asked Russians to seek the truth about their country's invasion of Ukraine. He also appealed for dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians following recent violence. He has equally praised nations that have accepted refugees in their country. And in Kenya, the space agency has announced its intention to launch Kenya's first operation. A roundup of these stories with our reporter, Malaglory.
The 86-year-old pontiff topped the celebration with a traditional speech about troubled places in the world, encouraging trust among individuals, people, and nations. Pope Francis said the joyful expression of Easter brings light to the darkness and gloom in which our world finds itself trapped today. Since Russia invaded neighboring Ukraine in February 2022, Francis has repeatedly called for the fighting to end and sought prayers for the martyred Ukrainian people. The Pope implored God in his Easter message to help the beloved Ukrainian people on their journey towards peace and also to shed the light of Easter upon the Russian people. He urged the international community to work to end the war in Ukraine and all conflict and bloodshed in the world. Pope Francis also prayed for those who lost loved ones in an earthquake that struck Syria and Turkey 2 months ago, claiming tens of thousands of lives. And over to Kenya, where Kenya Space Agency announces the launch of Taifa 1, One Nation in Swahili, Kenya's first operational Earth observation satellite on April 11, 2023. The 3U8 observation was developed by engineers from the Kenya Space Agency. The launch is said to be aided by the Space Exploration Technologies Corporation from California, USA.
The satellite will be flying in this horizontal position, this orientation, with deployable solar panels. In this case, we call them solar arrays, so that they have maximum illumination of the solar energy from the sun.
Why aluminium?
Because it has better thermal characteristics, and equally, it has good characteristics to withstand the harsh space environment.
Taifa 1 aims to provide timely and accurate data in a diverse array of fields, such as disaster management, agriculture and food security, environmental monitoring, and natural resource management. The launch of Taifa 1 showcases Kenya's clear stride in advancing satellite manufacturing capacities to develop applications for social and economic benefits.
And still on our international page, China has sent 71 warplanes across the median line into Taiwan in a military drill presented as a warning to Taiwanese separatists and external collaborators like the United States. Taiwan says it is monitoring the activities of Chinese People's Liberation Army. The United States, on its part, says it will intervene to defend Taiwan should China attack. We have more of this international page with Fomi Armstrong-Sander.
Chinese simulated strikes on Taiwan began immediately after the Taiwanese president's landmark meeting with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in California.
The friendship between the people of Taiwan and America is a matter of profound importance to the free world.
Chinese state media says multiple types of units are carrying out simulated joint precision strikes on key targets on Taiwan and surrounding sea areas under the unified command of their Theater Joint Operation Command Center. It says the strikes will continue to maintain an offensive posture around the island, a warning to the United States of America, according to international observers. Observers who say the United States regularly sends spy planes and ships into the area. Taiwan's defense ministry says it has detected fighter jets, heavy bombers, reconnaissance planes and other aircraft conducting multiple sorties. The ministry says the Chinese military has sent some 70 aircraft near Taiwan, with 35 of the warplanes crossing the unofficial median line into Taiwan. China's military has called the joint sword offensive as a serious warning against Taiwan's independent separatist forces' collision and provocation with external forces, a tiny veiled reference to the United States of America, according to geopolitical observers. A U.S. State Department spokesperson told the Japanese Times on Sunday that Washington was urging restraint, but said it was keeping close tabs on events around Taiwan.
And that report done by Fomi Armstrong-Sander puts a cap to this first part of the news. Talking Point is up next. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us on Talking Point. On today's edition of Talking Point, I will be receiving Pastor Pleasant Naomi Awa. She is a sociologist there in the southwest region of Cameroon. It is a pleasure to have you on the program today, Pastor Pleasant.
Good evening, Immaculate. Good evening, televiewers. It's a wonderful time to be with us on Talking Point. I am Pastor Pleasant Naomi, and I'll pray that the Lord will help us in this very edition, as we are going to be talking about violence.
So, Pastor Pleasant, I would like to know from you today, why is it that violence seems to be recurrent in our society nowadays? What factors accounts for that?
I think it's a real concern today in our society. I think that we have so much work to do, the law enforcement officers in particular. The thing is that many people have not paid attention to violence, and especially the cause of violence. It's a state of aggression. We have people that are being abused in different ways, and if it's not physical abuse, many people don't want to understand how it happened. For example, if a child says she has been raped, and if there's no medical attention or medical proofs, nobody wants to believe this child. And how many children have been taken for medical tests to prove that they have been raped or not? I want to say that our law enforcement officers have to wake up. They have to take these things very serious. They have to take it very serious, because when we talk about violence, we have different forms of violence. We have murder, we have assault, and name it, there are many different kinds of violence. How do we attend to it? What are the provisions in the law? I think that we need to let people know the provisions that are in our law in Cameroon when it comes to violence. Is it under a misdemeanor offense? I know violence is a criminal offense. So how is it handled in our community? What is the fine? What is the judgment? And is it really taken into consideration when a person violates the law in different areas? Maybe murder, maybe theft, maybe assault, rape, and all of that. How is it being handled? We have to know this, and we have to really put it into very serious practice as per the provisions of the law. Thank you.
Okay, you are a sociologist. Right now, we have noticed that a lot of women are victims of violence in our society. Recently, in Nangai Boko, we had a woman and 5 children from the same family who were killed. Today in Douala, it's a lady that was stabbed by a man. There are many other cases like this. What still, even the forces of law and order who are meant to protect us are not equally left away from this violence. A woman was killed, and a gendarme officer was killed in Yaoundé. What really can we say? What can you say about this? Things that are very recurrent.
That violence is a very, very familiar word today in our society. We hear about violence in our homes, in families. You hear about violence in the community. You hear about violence in the schools. And what else? And I want you to know that every one of you can be a victim of violence. It's not about gender bias. The male, the female can be a victim of violence. And we are going to be talking about this at length.
Can be a victim of violence, but now we have noticed that it's mostly the women that are mostly victims of violence. Is it that the men don't talk out, or what's wrong?
Oh yes, I would want to say that it's not about gender. It's not gender violence. Is not gender sensitive. Men, likewise, women are also experience violence. They go through violence. Men are also going through violence. In the sphere of families, there are men whom in their homes they don't have a voice. There are men who are married to very nagging women, women who do not understand family care. And so the men are frustrated. There are men in their homes that do not have their place. There are men who they experience violence in their workplace. And in other places, men are also part of this violence that we are talking about.
Don't you think the fact that the perpetrators usually go unpunished with others set free without finishing their prison terms equally accounts for the rise in violence in Cameroon?
So when perpetrators of violence do not go through their prison terms, I think is really a concern, because that gives them room or others to take advantage of our law system. I think we have to really enforce the law. I think we have to really let the law go on its course and let people be brought to judgment when necessary. They should serve their prison terms. They should pay fines for the acts, for the crimes they have committed, so that every other person who wants to dare to violate the law or to violate any individual should know that they will go down for it.
And now, what about the absence of rigorous moral education in our schools? Can it be considered as a contributing factor?
We may say that some parents and teachers are not playing their role adequately, because they are the first teachers. The parents at home, I think they are the very first teachers for their children, and the teachers, they are going to meet in school. I think both sets of people should be well equipped to give out the right information to their children. Parents, you have a role to play. Teachers in school, you have a very important role also to play. Thank you.
Children are not equally left out. In Yaoundé, it's not been too long, we heard a student stabbing a teacher. And to some extent, what can you say parents and teachers are they really playing their role adequately as far as reducing the number of violent cases is concerned?
I think we should be exposed to the right information. Information is the key. And I want to really thank God, because we are in a technology age where you can Google and read about many things. We are exposed to information, but how do you get the right information? Let's get the right information. Let's know our rights. Let's know what we have to face by ourselves, what we have to allow the law to come in. And I think from there we are good to go. Thank you.
You are a sociologist, at the same time a pastor. From your own point of view, what's the way out of such tragedies in our society today?